Central rivals go head-to-head this weekend when the Pirates face the Cubs at Wrigley.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out.
The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
There's no doubting who the champion on the men's side is. It's not the Kentucky Wildcats or Wisconsin. Duke has done it. Coach K with his 5th national championship, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes with Andy Katz. There is some sad news to pass along today from the world of college basketball. Torrey Ward, who grew up in Birmingham and played at famed Phillips High School in downtown Birmingham, passed away in a plane crash overnight. He was an assistant with Illinois State. He played his college basketball at UAB. He also was an assistant coach at Jack State and at Ole Miss under Andy Kennedy. And Andy Kennedy released a statement a short time ago saying, "My heart today is with his kids and his mother. I've known them for a very long time. It's just tragic news." He was very good with our players. He was a player's coach. He had an infectious personality that people wanted to be around. When you interacted with him, you left feeling better about your circumstances. He was going to be a star in this business. He never met a stranger. He was always in a good mood. People gravitated toward Torrey because of his personality. It is absolutely heartbreaking. The plane crash took place after Coach Ward was in Indianapolis, and we certainly pass along our deepest condolences not only to his family, to the many lives that he affected. We'll get your calls in a moment, as I mentioned, at 855-242-7285. Certainly a lot of reaction last night, and we were here yesterday talking about lapse of character in terms of players and coaches with Kentucky, mainly the players. And then, of course, last night, the Wisconsin coach, Bo Ryan, did the same thing with simply an unwarranted comment directed towards pretty much everyone in the field, and we'll talk to Andy Katz about that as well. As I mentioned, 855-242-7285. I've given our next caller a hard time, but he's had the last laugh on everyone. He promised a Kentucky loss somewhere along the way. He promised and guaranteed a Coach K victory, and he delivered. Lance starts us off. Lance, thanks for the phone call. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul, thank you for your time, brother.
You bet.
Hey, man, I want to tell you, man, you've been real fair on Coach K. I know we've had some battles, but it was all in fun, man. But, hey, man, Kentucky's going to have to eat this. I got to tell you, Paul, they keep talking, all I've heard about is Coach K face of college basketball. He's the best with one and done. Coach K just coached 4 freshmen, man. I'm going to say this about Kentucky. I guarantee you, if Coach K would have been coaching that Kentucky team, they would have won it. Coach K's a choke artist, man. He comes up short all the time. I don't want to keep saying the same thing, but it's true, and he keeps proving me right. But Coach K's a man. One thing we do got to get out of the way, though, is Coach Rupp. This guarantees Coach K's better than Coach Rupp. 5 national titles, 12 Final Fours. Coach Rupp's only got 6 Final Fours, 4 titles, and plus he played in the black and white when there wasn't even no color TV. I don't know about you, Paul, but it just means more when you see it in color.
Yeah, no, well, I don't know about that, but I would say that Mike Krzyzewski has easily eclipsed Adolph Rupp right now on the all-time coaching list. I mean, right now, if you're looking at the list, there's only one man ahead of him, and that's John Wooden.
I agree with that, Paul. And Kentucky fans are shouting hot this year because they want to dismiss Coach K. They start calling in, you can't spell Duke without UK. Let me tell you something, son. We own Kentucky. Since Coach K's been there, we've been the best basketball program in basketball. UConn might be second. Kentucky and UConn probably tied. But I just say, man, I didn't want to come on this show and wreck the SEC party, but I just got tired of hearing Kentucky fans. They act like they're the only franchise in basketball. They're not, man. Duke, Duke, Duke. Go Blue Devils. Go Blue. Go Blue.
Okay, a reasonable, a fairly sensible call in terms of a lack of screaming there from Lance, but good for him. His Blue Devils won today, and no problem here. I've always been a big fan of Krzyzewski, and of Duke. I just became less of one when Lance started calling in every day, ripping the rest of college basketball.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Yesterday, Indianapolis. Today, he's in our studio. Who knows where Andy Katz will be tomorrow? I mean, I
You can't get enough of me.
I mean, what was your wake-up call this morning about?
Let's say I walked off Lucas Oil Stadium court. We were taping a couple things. I think it was like 1:30. By the way, randomly, Digger Phelps is there doing Campus Insiders.
Really?
Bonnie Bernstein. Very bizarre.
Okay. Glad to know that.
Yes, because I hear this booming voice.
There is life after ESPN.
I know it. Like I hear this booming voice, like, keep it down. We're trying to tape. And it was Digger.
Wow.
And, they're breaking everything down. The ladders are up, and there's confetti everywhere. So that was about 1:30. So I got to bed around 2:45 and had an 8:50 flight here to Charlotte.
Oh, late.
Yeah. So,
Well, I'm glad you could. Here,
I said I can't miss being in studio with Paul.
I've got a latte waiting for you as you walk out.
Yes, I'm on fumes right now.
Last night.
Oh, by the way, you can tell your listeners it's my birthday today, too.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
You're still in your 20s?
No, I'm still under 50, so that's big.
It's always good.
Yes.
When you're under 50 and
But
still
when you're
alive.
north of 45,
It
who's
begins
counting?
to go badly for
Right.
you.
It's just a number, right, Paul?
I quit counting.
Yes.
Andy, we talked yesterday about John Calipari, and I understand he was not received well at the arena last night.
Yeah, it was interesting. They bring out the Hall of Fame class. So earlier on Monday, as we talked about, he gets into the Hall of Fame, which is great. And then during the second half of the national championship game, they do this every year. They bring out the Hall of Fame class. Dikembe Mutombo shaking his finger at everyone. And John Calipari was out there. And, yeah, there was boos, which was kind of surprising. Well, he had
And those were from the Kentucky fans in the arena.
yes, saying, hey, we paid money. Now we're stuck here.
Where's the team? We don't want to see you.
Because we had a 4-night minimum at the hotel. But I will say this. Tom Green got booed when he was introduced Saturday night as sort of a former Final Four coach. So a little bizarre, but, we've always discussed it. He's been a bit of a polarizing figure, and some love him, some don't.
Another person who has been beloved, but last night drew the wrath of a lot of people, and Bo Ryan, your reaction to his reaction.
It was an emotional night, obviously, for Wisconsin. They had a 9-point lead. They blew it. It's funny. On Saturday night, everyone said that Wisconsin won the game against Kentucky, that Kentucky didn't gag or anything like that. Wisconsin won that game, which I totally agree. I think if you're a Wisconsin fan or an alum, like myself, but I was down the middle, I think you look at the case where Wisconsin had this opportunity to win this game, and they didn't. Duke obviously won the game by Grayson Allen coming off the bench and playing sensational for that stretch, and then Tyus Jones, finishing it off. But Wisconsin pulled back, was not aggressive. Sam Decker was a little MIA in the second half. Trayvon Jackson should not have been taking 7 shots, not even 1. And they lost the game. Duke grabbed the opportunity once Wisconsin had pulled back. So a lot of frustration. I don't think you can criticize the officials here. If you want to look at that one play on Justice Winslow, not getting that right on the replay, sure. But then you can flip it around and say Saturday night, even though they didn't have replay for shot clock, they clearly blew that play, and Nigel Hayes getting that bucket on the shot clock. So it's worked both ways for Wisconsin at the Final Four.
His line got a lot of play.
Yes.
It seems like it will pass. Anyone on the other side take?
Well, first of all, here's the deal. They've had early entrants, and they're going to have another one because I'll be surprised if Sam Decker does not declare for the NBA draft. If they could get Jahlil Okafor and Tyus Jones both from the Midwest, Jones from Minnesota, Okafor from Chicago, Wisconsin would. And if there was an unbelievable player from Milwaukee or something like that who's a one and done, Wisconsin would try to get him. So I don't believe that he wouldn't try that. It's just worked out that they've, had these kind of players. And I believe him when he says that he likes this better, because I think every coach would like this better. And John Calipari and Mike Krzyzewski have said they would rather have these guys for 3 to 4 years. But that's not reality for the elite players.
Yeah, it seemed like it would have had more zing had it been against Calipari than against Krzyzewski. And let's transition to him. And there aren't enough adjectives to describe the greatness, but you've seen a lot of it in recent years. what did last night mean to him and his legacy?
Well, I've covered a lot of his championships, and I would say that this was as giddy as he's ever been after a championship, because I don't think he ever felt the stress of it. If you go back to, the great team, the second year when they were going to go against the Fab Five in '92, after they'd already won in '91, a lot of pressure to go back to back. You got essentially the same team. Pressure, I think, in '99 when they had a great team, they ended up losing to UConn, or the team that ended up winning the national championship against Arizona in 2001. 2010, it's interesting. John Shire told me last night that even though that was a year they weren't expecting necessarily to win the title, but once they're in the title game against Butler, and Butler's the home team in Indianapolis, there was pressure. Shire said to me last night that Coach K was tense because he tried to convince these guys, hey, this team's pretty good. They can beat us, and essentially their home game in Indianapolis. So the difference is this year, all the pressure was on Kentucky. Every game throughout the course of the tournament. I never sensed that from Duke, that they were expected to win the title, that they felt that pressure even in their own conference. Virginia won it. They didn't. They didn't win the conference tournament. So that pressure was not on Duke, and I could see that he was sort of relieved in a way, and you just as I said, giddy about this title. And I will say this: I don't know if you would buy this in a college football argument as well as college basketball. We love to compare eras, and I don't think you can. I think you look at what John Wooden did, and you put that in a bottle and say it was remarkable for that time period. But this is a completely different era in terms of the one and dones, the fact that it's so much more difficult because of 68 teams. You got to win 6 games, social media, all the distractions. Same thing for Nick Saban versus Bear Bryant. 2 totally different eras. It's structured different. I think it's much harder to win national championships and multiple now than then.
As we look ahead for Krzyzewski, there's almost no exit point because, as you said, he's giddy, he's excited. But what do you think's going through his mind? Do you think there's ever a thought that, hey, mate, this was a good place to leave it, or I keep rolling down the highway?
He loves it because his family loves it. I mean, that's a big difference with Coach K. His family is completely immersed into this program. I don't think I've ever covered a major game and Mickey Krzyzewski is not in the news conference and by his side, or his daughters and their husbands and their children are not around. It's a family affair. And so I don't think they want him to get out. A lot of times it's the family says, you know what,
right,
you're done. Jim Calhoun's wife, Pat, I think she'd had enough of him coaching and wanted him to step down. I don't sense that at all from Coach K. But I don't think he wants to coach till he's 75, 77 or something like that. I will not be surprised if the year after he coaches the next Olympics, so that would be 2016-17, if there's a time period, whether that's that season or the season after that, that he walks away. I haven't talked to him about this. This is just my own just thinking of, that I don't think he wants to coach deep into the next decade because he's got his health. He enjoys life in terms of other things in life. So I'll be surprised. But right now he's energized and, clearly wants to get right back at it next season. As he said to me last night, I'm looking forward to creating another team that can be a really great team.
The champion. And we spent all year talking about the wrong one.
A lot of calls. Light up the phone.
Yeah, Andy Katz. So our last in-studio visit for a while, but
not our last talk.
You've been great. We've got you booked for SEC Media Football this year. We want your insight because it's been so much fun. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Paul.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We bring in Marcus Spears, the big swagoo, presumably to talk about some football, but we're going to pick his brain on basketball as well. What do you say, Swagoo?
P-Town, what's up, man? What's
Doing
up?
Okay.
I got a lot to talk about, man. A lot to talk about.
Well, let's shoot.
Let's get into it. What you want to cover first?
Let's talk a little basketball first.
All right, so I was going to go on a rant on Twitter after the Kentucky-Wisconsin game, and I only had one problem. I heard the caller previously talk about Calipari as one of the greatest. I don't disagree with that, but I don't put him in the same category with some of the greats when I think about college basketball. I think he's one of the best recruiters in the history of the game. But when you talk about winning championships, which all coaches are, because they can't play the game, so all coaches are judged on how many championships they win. He doesn't have enough yet. Going to the game.
Well, but Marcus, right now he has one, which is the same number that Joe B. Hall and Tubby Smith and Rick Pitino had at Kentucky. I don't mean to diminish Kentucky, but if you're a coach at Kentucky and you don't get to a national championship, you're a failure.
Yeah, true. I understand that, Paul. But when you talk about great coaches now, I think, Kentucky has such basketball lore, and everybody identifies with the University of Kentucky because of basketball. Let's just be honest. The football team, Coach Stoops, has them on the rise, but Kentucky is about basketball. And I think no matter who the coach is, they expect the team to win and be successful. That doesn't add up to national championships every year, but they expect them to compete.
Oh, you
and
bet.
Go to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, and Final Four. That's an expectation at the University of Kentucky, with the tremendous amount of talent that they usually have there in order to do that.
Chatting with Marcus Spears. Marcus, let's turn the tables to football because the basketball season is over, other than the women's game. I understand you're going to Arkansas this weekend to check out Brett Bielema's club. What do you expect?
Paul, I'm excited to be going to Fayetteville. I'm excited to see. I want to feel the energy around Arkansas. It's a lot of positive things, being said about this upcoming year based on how they finished the last year. And I'm pretty sure all head coaches will tell you, and I'm pretty sure Brett will say the same thing when I have time with him to talk to him, is that last year is over and we're moving on. But I think they're using that momentum. They play football the way you have to play football to win a lot of games in the SEC, closing out last year. And I think they have to use that and ride it out. I'm going to have an opportunity to talk to Jermichael Winston when I'm down there. So, I think these guys are excited, man. Once you take – and he told us all year, and if you remember, Paul, we have to get a win so I can get these guys to buy in to what I'm saying. We have to feel what it feels like to have success from a plan that we've put together all week. And I think that's what's happening right now in Arkansas. I think that's what the spring is about. Is really about compounding on what was able to transpire at the end of last football season and carrying that over into the new year. And the one thing that I want to ask him more than anything is, how do you keep these guys grounded when everybody's expecting them to be something before any ball is kicked off or any snap happens? What's the message to these guys about how to stay even keel and just go about your work day in, day out? Because when you've been down for so long and you experience success, sometimes you can get in the way of thinking that it's going to be like that all the time and you forget those steps. So I'm real interested to just feel the atmosphere, see what the guys look like. Brett Bielema is always fun to be around. I love him as a guy, so I'm looking forward to it, man.
I know that next week you'll hit old stomping grounds in Baton Rouge. What do you hear out of Les Miles' camp?
Well, it seems like Anthony Jennings is getting better at quarterback. Brandon Harris also. Let's just praise both of those guys. The competition, that's what you're hearing about more than anything, is that they're competing in practice, in the games, up front, offensively and defensively. I think the O-line and D-line will be the key for LSU if they don't get that quarterback play that they need, like they struggled with last year. I think the success that they had last year was because the offensive line played well and they were able to run the football. And we know they're going to try to get Fournette involved. We know that they're going to play a physical style of football that helps them, regardless of if they can throw for 350 yards a game and 5 touchdowns. But I think if these quarterbacks can progress, the story that everybody wants to know, if they can get better and get to a point where they can actually win games and not be game managers, this will be a real good team. They're very athletic. Everybody's high praise for Kelvin Tolliver, the freshman cornerback, #1 guy in the country. So it's a lot of stuff on the uptick at LSU like it usually is in the preseason. So I'm excited to get there and see what happens, man.
You bet. Well, most of all, we're excited to catch back up with you again and look forward to seeing you right here very soon, I hope.
Can't wait to see you, P-Town.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Let's check in with Chris, who is in Georgia. How are you, Chris?
Hey, Paul. How you doing, buddy?
Okay.
Listen, let me tell you why I consider Coach K the greatest coach of all time.
Okay.
First off, I never got to see. I'm 46, and when I was a baby is when John Wooden retired, so I never got to see him. I wish I would have. But Coach K, not only does he win with class, he teaches people so much about how to live your life with class. He, believe it or not, I can watch an interview with him. I can watch him coach. I can watch him do just about anything. And I learned something about class and dignity every single time. And another point, do you honestly think he would have allowed any of his players to act the way, Kentucky did, or act the way Bo Ryan did? Do you really think any of those people would have stood half a chance if one of his players had acted that way at a press conference?
Let me say, first of all, I agree with you. I think Krzyzewski is the example that we all look for. But don't sell Coach Wooden short, and I know you're not. One thing about John Wooden, though, in his era, I mentioned how the tournament was smaller and you only had to win 2 games. But you know what you did have to do back then? You had to win your conference. If you didn't win your conference, you didn't go to the NCAA tournament. So there was a lot of pressure on the regular season. I think as far as a teacher, I've never seen one better than Wooden. And by the way, that's no shot at Krzyzewski. I think Krzyzewski would probably agree with that as well. But today he is by far the classiest. And Calipari is a different type of coach. He doesn't care what you and I think. All he cares about is what the next set of recruits think. And it puts him a little bit out there on an island.
It does, but it just, it's amazing to me how when they're winning and all that, oh, they're great kids, oh, they're this, they're class, they're this, they're doing everything the class way. But the minute they lose, you kind of see the real side. You see things as they. Well,
that's part of that's part of people in life. And I won't overwhelm you with cliches.
No,
your character is revealed when things aren't going well, and
absolutely.
Listen. Bo Ryan has a lot of friends in the media, and that's fine. I was embarrassed for him last night. There's no excuse for a coach his age to act like that. If you want to make an excuse for Andrew Harrison, I'll buy it. He's 20 years old, but Bo Ryan has him about 40 years.
But my point being, you're absolutely right. Your character is revealed. But does that not say even more about Coach K? Because when he does lose or when his team loses?
I agree. No, I think there's no arguing that. And I'm with you. I mean, he's done it all. I'm really pleased that at 67 years old, you could have that type of energy, that type of desire. You heard Andy Katz talk about he's still got the Olympics ahead of him, and what a difference he's made there. Rick is next up in Los Angeles. So what's up, Rick?
Well, thank you, Mr. Finebaum. Thank you for my call. Hello, fellas in the booth, Big John and Mark. Paul, you already took out my thunder. Before I get on that, I want Jumbo's bandwagon here. Lance, you've been taking the heat. You step up to the plate. This is your day, your month, your year. Congratulations.
Yeah, Rick. If I had a Duke cap, I was going to wear it during Lance's segment. I just didn't have one, so I will eventually. It shouldn't be too hard to find one where I am right now. So I'll honor Lance with a tip of the hat from the Blue Devils as soon as I can get my hands on a Duke cap.
Well, while you're doing that, add Jumbo, Rick, and a bunch of the rest of us on that list because. I'll be honest with you, I didn't think Kentucky could get beat after they got through the SEC conference. I, for one, have watched a lot of basketball. I'm not an expert, but I've seen a lot through the Coach Wooden era, by the way, in the 60s. I was very fortunate. But I didn't think this Kentucky team could beat. But it proves once again, on any given night, any time, it can happen. Paul, though, I want to thank you. I was going to come out, not screaming, but I was going to come out one more time that you cleared it up with the gentleman from Georgia. The thing about when people say that it was easy for Coach Wooden, I get really my dandruff up because I figure every team that he faced had to win the conference. So you're facing the conference champ on every step of the way. You're not facing the fourth team, third team, or whatever. Okay, so you clear that up. And, Mark, I'll just say this. You're right about the one-and-dones. But, you know, like you said, Paul, I think the greatest accomplishment Coach Wooden did was his 2 championships, 64-65, with no one bigger than 6'6". To me, that was just remarkable. And then he had the 1 year he missed, and Ralph Miller's team came in and won the conference, and he had to sit home. And then Lou Alcindor came in, you know the rest. But then after Lou Alcindor, I remember.
But didn't he, Rick? Was it Swen Nader? I can't remember which one he backed up. I mean, he had an NBA star as either else.
I'll be glad to tell you when Lou Alcindor played, his backup, who carried the torch afterwards, was a gentleman, and he's well forgotten, and I am really ticked, and I've been pushing UCLA. He should be in the UCLA Hall of Fame. Steve Patterson.
Okay, Steve Patterson.
When he left, everybody across the nation, well, that's the end of the run. No more. Well, Coach won 5 more afterwards, and it was Steve Patterson, Curtis Rowe, Sid Wicks, Henry Bibby those 2 years, Vallely 1 year, Booker the next. Then the Walton game came in, and that's where, Paul, Swen Nader backed up Walton. He backed up Walton.
I mean, he backed up Walton, but Rick, didn't he go on and play in the NBA forever?
Yes. Well, he had a stint, but he did have a stint. Yes, he did. But then when Bill Walton left and the Walton gang left, he won his last championship with a gentleman that backed up his senior year named Ralph Drollinger. And he had a stint out there, too. So he changed with the game. But I'll tell you what, in conclusion, and thank you for the time, Andy Katz hit it best. You put each generation, it's different. Things are different. My opinion don't mean nothing. Won't buy you a donut. You want to talk football? I respect Nick Saban. He's a great coach. But if I had to choose, you say Paul would say, Rick, pick one. No doubt. Bear Bryant. To me, in fact, I think Bear Bryant was the greatest, followed by Paternal. And I've been saying it all along. But I want to thank you guys for the time, and maybe now we'll talk some NCAA baseball coming up to fill in the time for football coming around the corner.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
And we're back with Coach Mark Richt of the University of Georgia as the Dogs begin to wind things down this spring. Coach, thanks for being with us. I hope the spring has gone well for you.
It's gone very well. We've had beautiful weather, and the guys have gotten better, and we do have our spring game this weekend, but we decided to add a couple practices at the tail end of it just to make sure we've got a day in between all the other practices throughout the spring, but it's been very good.
Let's talk about the spring game, because various coaches have different approaches. Some make it into a big deal, and obviously this is the SEC, so everything is. But how do you approach that game, and what do you try to accomplish in doing so?
Well, the biggest thing is to have a situation where we get our guys, playing in front of the home crowd and having a chance to, have as much of a game-like situation as you could put them in. And we learn a lot in practice. We learn a lot in scrimmages, but I think we learn just a little bit more in a spring game. One that a lot of folks will be in the stands. One that a lot of people will be watching on television. And it's just it's the closest thing we get to a real game to really see how far these guys have come.
Coach, when we visited last, we were obviously asking you about the quarterback situation. I have a feeling fans Saturday are curious about that. What can you share with us?
Well, we've done a pretty good job of allowing all these guys to get reps with the number 1 unit, number 2 unit, even the number 3 unit. We've been trying to give them as equal of an opportunity as possible just to see what's going on with these guys. I think they've learned a lot. They're getting better at their reads and finding the open people, hitting checkdowns, things of that nature, not throwing balls into coverage. As a unit, I think we've improved quite a bit, and we're really still just watch and observe and trying to figure out what's going to be in the best interest of Georgia down the road. But right now, it's a very tight race. I don't think we'll name anybody a starter when this thing is over. I'm sure the fans will have an opinion of what they think, depending on how these guys perform. But just like last scrimmage, Bryce Ramsey and Fatone Bauta both hit like 17 out of 28 passes, for about the same amount of yards and all that kind of thing. So statistically, there hadn't been a big separation, and Jacob Park is showing some, really great flashes of his abilities. So it's going to be hard to figure out who's going to be the man right now, but we're getting closer.
Let me ask you about Brian Schottenheimer. He replaced Mike Bobo, someone who's been a part of this program for a very long time. What has it been like in approaching the quarterback race with someone new, someone you obviously chose, helping you out?
Well, Brian, first of all, is an outstanding teacher of quarterback fundamentals. He's an outstanding teacher, of the scheme that he's been running in the NFL for years. And part of the reason why I chose Brian was because our philosophies are very much the same in how we approach the game, approach offensive football. So a lot of similarities in what we've been doing for years. So it's been a good fit. But he's got a great football mind. He's a good teacher, and he's got a great demeanor. He's got a great. He's a very relational guy. I think that helps when you're dealing with young players. I think it helps when you're dealing with recruiting as well. So we're very pleased with how Coach Schottenheimer has come in and got things going for us offensively.
I realize you just alluded to the fact that you don't have anyone picked yet, but when Saturday's over and when you finally wind down, how will you approach making that determination, or is it really that important to have a number one at this point in time?
I don't think we'll have a number one at the end of this spring. It's been too even of a race, I think, across the board, and I think that they're all very capable of being that guy, and competition has made them better, and I want them to continue to compete, and then we'll iron this thing out once we get into fall camp. But right this minute, I'm just pleased that everybody's progressing well and competing well, and I think they all have a legitimate shot at being the guy.
And I guess you're not getting too many questions about how your running backs are looking.
Well, we had a couple of them banged up actually, but we do have some pretty sporty backs, and they're outstanding people and outstanding players, and so we're in pretty good shape in that category.
A lot has been made recently about discipline issues, and I'll try not to bring you into a case that's actually being a hearing is going on today involving one of your former players. But you've received a lot of credit for being tolerant, but also at some point in time drawing a line in the sand. Let's talk, if you don't mind, about your overall view of discipline and the difficulties of dealing with it, and how you finally reach a determination.
Right. Well, first of all, we love all these guys. I mean, I love these players. We've recruited them. We've brought them. They chose Georgia. So we have an obligation to them to try to help them become the best football player, become the best person they could be, to get educated, get their degrees, and just help them be prepared for life in general. And but there's certain things that if you're a part of an organization or a team, you have to stay within a certain parameter of how we go about our business. And if you stray off the path, then we got to get you back on the path. And obviously, I'd rather do that while the guys are within the program. But if certain things happen that are a detriment to the campus or to the team in general, then sometimes the guy has to move on. And it's not a happy time. It's a very sad time. It's a time of feeling like we failed in some way, shape, or form. But sometimes it's the very thing that'll help a guy get his life turned around as well. So the goal is to have a certain set of rules and regs and things that you believe in, and get everybody going in the same direction. And if a guy gets too far off the path and he needs a new place to find for home, then that's what we'll do. But it's not a situation where we just don't care about that person anymore. It's just a situation where you've got to get everybody understanding there's a certain way we're going to do things.
Is it more difficult today, or is that always a challenge in picking athletes? I mean, you're trying to get the best possible athlete that fit to your program, but are the rules today more stringent on missing on some, or is it really the same as it's always been?
I think it's the same as it's always been, and you don't know for sure what might happen down the road. And a lot of times when guys make mistakes, it's just that. I mean, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody. There's no perfect coach, there's no perfect player, there's no perfect anybody, and so people make mistakes, and that's part of the learning process. And if you do it the right way, you can learn a lot. There's been a lot of guys over the years that I've had that have had issues that might have caused a suspension, or you get them up at 5:30 in the morning to wear them out a little bit to send a message and all that kind of thing, and they grow into these tremendous people in society years down the road. Even some guys that have had to be dismissed from the team, it doesn't mean that that's failure. I mean, total failure. It's just a bump in the road that if he gets his life turned around, he may still turn out to do wonderful things. So just because a guy makes a mistake doesn't mean he's a bad guy. It just means that he did something foolish that he's got to pay the price for. But once he pays it, get back in society and do great things.
Coach, the spring game is Saturday. After that, there's still a little bit more work to be done, and I guess the head coach never has much time off. But what does your schedule look like once you finally put the wraps on spring?
Well, we're actually going to have 2 practices after our spring game. We'll practice on Tuesday and Thursday. And the reason we did that is because we like to have like Monday's an off day. Tuesday we practice. Wednesday's off. Thursday we practice. Friday's off. Saturday we go. So we had a day in between every practice. I think it's healthy for the players. I think it's healthy for the coaches in their reviewing of what happened and preparing for the next day. So we do have a couple more practices, and then before long, everybody will be on the road recruiting. We'll be doing some Bulldog clubs, and before you know it, camp season's here, and then maybe a little vacation.
Yeah, one thing you realize when the NCAA basketball tournament ends that I know baseball is next in terms of determining a championship, but it means football is pretty close to being around the corner.
Right.
Coach, many thanks as always.
Have a great day, Paul.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Daryl is up next in Georgia. Hey, Daryl.
August cannot get here soon enough, in my opinion. What about yours?
I'm ready.
I am ready for some college football, baby. Big time ready. You know what? I guarantee you right now, go and mark it down. I said it in April. Watch it. What happened? Bryce Ramsey will be the quarterback for Georgia. He was the better of the two quarterbacks last year, talent-wise, but Rick had to start Preston Mason because he told him if he stick around for his senior year, he'd be the starter. But no doubt Bryce Ramsey had more talent. As far as Georgia goes, I mean, we got 4 offensive linemen coming back. We were stout last year being able to run the football. The backfield is stacked. We got Malcolm Mitchell and that boy Wesley Cook. We got the receivers. Defensive side of the ball, I think the defense is going to be even better under the second year under Pruitt. We got probably a little bit more of a favorable schedule. I ain't really worried about Florida. South Carolina seems to have lost a little bit of its swagger. And it's going to be interesting to hear what Square has to say tomorrow. I ain't really worried about what. I mean, Missouri, you can't never tell. I just hope Missouri plays somebody this year. Tennessee, I mean, I keep hearing it every year about Tennessee. We'll see what they got. But there's no reason why Georgia should not win the East, in my opinion. I mean, hands down, they should not win. They should win the East. Hey, real quick, I want to also mention on the Avery Johnson hire. I don't get it, Paul. I feel like it was a rush job. The pressure was on. He couldn't find nobody. I mean, the guy's got 5 years coaching experience. He's been fired twice. He has no collegiate coaching experience. Yeah, he does have good personality. But let me ask you this. Why is it so hard, do you think, for a university to have a big-time head football coach and a big-time head basketball coach?
Well, that's a good question, and it's not always that case. Florida had Urban Meyer and Billy Donovan and Spurrier and Billy Donovan. I think Georgia has a good combination now, but I think Alabama missed a couple of years. Their program was out to sea for about 10 or 12 years. Even though there was a little bit of success in there, there wasn't very much. There was an attitude that we're still Alabama, and guess what? They found out they weren't Alabama. They were nobody when it really comes to basketball.
Well, yeah, I've always wondered, if you're a big-time basketball coach, do they want to go to a program where they know the football is going to be the cream of the crop? They're going to play second fiddle.
Well, I think, listen, Ohio State's had good coaches in both. Texas at times has had that. Tennessee at one time. I think it's just very cyclical. It doesn't happen very often, but I don't think Nick Saban has scared anyone away from that job. I just think that job is just not what it used to be, and that's why they came up with a creative choice as opposed to missing on the big guy, which they did, and then going for a good coach, but one that would get a bunch of yawns at the press conference.
Well, Coach Richt said ain't nobody perfect. I mean, did he forget about Nick Saban? I mean, Nick Saban's perfect, ain't he? I've never known him to do anything. Never. To this day, I've never known him to own up to one mistake. Hey, real quick, last night on
Hey, by the way, though, hold on a second, though. You talk about the schedule is more manageable, but you have a home game against Bama.
I cannot wait.
You're at Auburn. Wait. You're at Auburn. You have Georgia Tech on the road. Georgia Tech is a little better than you think they are. And
I agree. But maybe what I'm saying though is that
you don't have a quarterback.
Well, I think we got a quarterback this year that's going to be better than the one we had last year. I really believe that. Hey, one quick thing last night on the game. I was glad two reasons I'm glad Duke won. One for Coach K. You know, it kills me when I hear how Bobby Knight was his mentor, and they are absolutely nothing alike. I think that right there elevated Coach K last night to the best of the best when you talk about college basketball coaches. But one being Coach K and the other being the Big Ten didn't win. Glad for that also. Football.
Thank you very much, Daryl. Jim is up next in New Jersey. Hey, Jim.
Hey, how are you, Paul?
Okay, thank you.
First-time caller, long-time listener. It's an honor to speak with you, sir.
Thank you.
I was calling because I just wanted to pick up your discussion you had a little earlier about Coach Cal. And, you know, I think we can't deny the fact that he's a very good coach. But when you're talking about as far as the Mount Rushmore or putting him with elite coaches, I certainly don't believe he's that at this particular time. And I do agree with you earlier that when it comes down to championships or when it's time to be tested, he certainly hasn't been there. I mean, what's your take on that?
No, I agree, and you hate to say that because the argument can go both ways. But ultimately, in college basketball, you have to win championships, and Krzyzewski has proven that over a very long career. But Cal didn't start last night either. He went to the Final Four for the first time in 1996. And he's been very successful at Kentucky, but that loss to Kansas in 08 with Memphis in overtime when he had the game won and the free throws didn't go down has haunted him. Certainly he won in 12, but I think this year will haunt him as well.
Certainly, and that's the case, and that's why I said again. I think sometimes we get it confused. I think sometimes people might say, "Is he a great recruiter?" Indeed, he is. But far as saying he's one of the all-time great coaches,
no way.
He certainly would have to prove himself. And you know, I wanted to also just commend you yesterday. There was a discussion about Andrew Harrison, and you know, I think there was a caller that called in, and he was trying to make the issue about the racial slur. And I think really the point was the fact that what you said was about the aspect of profanity that he used towards the Wisconsin player. You know, it's been said there's two types of class: first class and no class. And basically, Andrew Harrison at that point showed no class. And really, to me, what it was, it just showed that I don't even know if I want to say that by him being 20 years old that he made a mistake. I just think he was a sore loser. When they were winning 38 games in a row, they would stand in line and pretty much do the press conferences, and everything was great. But
Jim, that's why I wanted to take the N-word out of the equation, and I knew we'd get the caller, the middle-aged white guy who wants to know, who's going to stand up for me. Well, cry me a river, okay? I was more concerned about that. I mean, if we're competitors and I sit there under my breath and use the F word in relation toward you in front of people, what does that say?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Paul, your point is well taken that, it really kind of shows the fact that, even though, you say that he's 20 years old, and so forth. Okay, we can take that. But the bottom line was, to me, he just was a sore loser. I just wanted to add this one other thing here real quick. As far as UConn women, if they win tonight. Do you think that's an indictment on the women's game in college basketball that UConn has been so dominant? Because it just seems that now the Pat Summitt is pretty much out of the way, and it's unfortunate that he has no one that's close to him at this point.
Well, that's true. I mean, Baylor made a run a couple of years ago with Brittany Griner. I mean, I don't follow the game as closely as I do the men's game, but there are very good teams. They just can't seem to beat him right now. And I don't think next year is going to be any easier. South Carolina made a run, Notre Dame, Maryland, you go down the list. Tennessee has really just not been the same since Pat Summitt, as sad as I am to say that. I really do appreciate your call. Thank you very much. Winston is up next. Hey, Winston.
Yeah, I just want to tell you I'm the happiest Kentucky fan in the state. I won the bracketology basketball tournament, winning 92% of the games. And I based it on two things. One, on Kentucky going as long as they did, and Duke, on the other side, going because they had such a weak opponents. The first two they played were dogs completely. They won by 20. The next two were unproven teams. Then they played a number 7 seed. And so Duke had a cakewalk right through the tournament.
Well, they may have had a cakewalk, but they played the best team left in the tournament last night, and they rolled over them at the end. Yeah, I mean, there were some upsets along the way, and Duke, but Duke was dominant. You can't take anything away from them. And when it really mattered, they delivered. Wisconsin can't say that. Kentucky can't say that, and no one else can say it as well.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Manuel in Austin, Texas, is up next. How are you, Manuel?
Oh, not too bad. What's going on, Paul Finebaum?
Good to hear from you.
Hey, man, I didn't want to call you in the last couple of weeks because I was really feeling bad for you guys over there in Alabama not being able to find a basketball coach. That was pretty embarrassing.
It took 21 days. Come on. It didn't take too long.
Well, let me tell you something, man. I feel Avery Johnson, I love Avery Johnson because I'm a big Spurs fan, but I feel bad for him because he made a decision a couple of years ago to take that New Jersey job after he got let go from Dallas, and I thought then, why did you take that job? He still had a little momentum from the good job that he did at Dallas, but he took a job.
Hey, by the way, why didn't he get fired in Dallas? Because I mean, I know his record. I mean, I know he got knocked out in the early rounds. Was that the reason?
Well, yeah, you know, they went in as the number 1 seed. I don't know if you remember.
I do remember
They had a hell
that.
of a season, and Golden State knocked them out. And I guess Mark Cuban didn't like that too much. He was coming off a finals loss to Shaq and Wade the year before, and then he gets knocked out. He gets knocked out in the first round as the number 1 seed, and that didn't go too well with Mark Cuban.
I get it. I get it now.
Yeah. I mean, he did good, you know. But that New Jersey job was a dead-end job. That job is one of the bad jobs in the NBA, and he took it, and I thought it was bad then. And now I really feel bad for him because that Alabama job is a job where you go to die, okay? it takes a desperate coach.
You go to die? Are you kidding me?
That's it, Paul Finebaum, and you know it. I know it. You know it. Everybody knows it. That's where you go to die. If I was, you know, you have to have somebody that is desperate. Avery Johnson is clearly a desperate coach. He's never even coached at the collegiate level. You know, and you're going in there to do something Anthony Grant couldn't do. Anthony Grant's already been successful in college, you know, and he couldn't do it. And what makes you think that Avery Johnson's going to do it? I mean, even Greg Marshall, who, by the way, was very interested in the Texas job, and that tells you, you know, where Texas is as opposed to Alabama. He was very interested in that Texas job. You couldn't get him away from Wichita State. Okay, that's pretty bad. Wichita State, all they have to do is make him a little better offer.
And the man, well, number one, I mean, he's going to make $3 million a year. I'm sure he'll give it his best shot. If it doesn't work out, he goes back to ESPN.
Well, I mean, that's what he'll end up doing. You know, that's.
How's your program doing? I mean, you fired Mac Brown, and now you fired Rick Barnes. I mean, 2 legendary coaches. What's up in Austin, Manuel?
Well, we just picked up a coach, Shaka Smart, who turned down UCLA, Maryland, Marquette, and Illinois.
Yeah.
Before Texas came calling.
He was hot. Shaka was hard
said,
3 or 4. He was hot 3 or 4 years ago when he went to the Final Four. What's he done since then?
He's done. Okay. They lost in the first round this year, but
yeah,
he's been to the Sweet 16 2 or 3
No,
times.
I didn't ask you what he's done. I just asked you what he's done lately.
But what he's fixing to do is bring a national championship to Texas.
Yeah, well, I'll be more than willing. I'd be more than happy to bet you that doesn't happen.
What do you base that on?
The University of Texas history.
Okay, what's that got to do with anything?
I mean, how many? You know the history of Texas basketball. You've had a couple of pretty good players.
We've had some good players.
Great players.
Rick Barnes took this program from the bottom, basically from where Alabama is right now, with trash. That's where Texas was 15 years ago. Yes. As far as basketball
okay,
goes,
man. Well,
it's where
great to hear from you.
15 years. Now you don't want to hear the fact. You don't want to hear the truth, Paul Finebaum, and that's fine. You know.
Tell me today how Texas basketball is any better than Alabama basketball with Shaka Smart versus Avery Johnson.
Because Shaka Smart is a proven NCAA collegiate basketball coach, who everybody wanted Shaka Smart. Okay, nobody could get him. Texas got him because Texas is Texas. And by the way, you're the one always talking about how you don't understand the arrogance of Texas. Well, if you didn't know, now you know, Paul Finebaum. You got Alabama and Texas were both looking for a coach. Y'all couldn't get the guy that wanted to come to Texas. Texas didn't even look at that guy. They went after the guy.
Let's get to a more important issue here, Manuel. We're talking about basketball, which is great. Texas tried to get Nick Saban. They ended up with Charlie Strong. How'd that one work out?
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Larry is up next in Missouri.
Hey, Mr. Finebaum, how you get along today?
Okay.
Hey, great. Hey, I tell you what, old Cal's taking on the chin today, but he's Super Mario, old Cal. He's safe and solid, man. It's a good dude. Hey, as far as old Darryl, he did say one thing I have to take exception to, that Coach K's mentor, Bobby Knight, he's nothing like him. I think this is the opposite. I mean, this dude fights brass knuckles. He's way more like Bobby Knight than anybody would ever understand, and he would tell you the exact same thing. Hey, and as far as old Rick, now we all agree he's one fine fella, and even old Darryl hit on it, that they're loaded for bear. But the trouble is, the coach is Mark Richt. And you can pencil him in for 9-3, and he won't even need no eraser. And as far as Shotty, I'm glad that old Rick likes him, philosophy, you know. For being here in St. Louis, I watched it for about 3 years. You were up the middle twice and passed on third down. So I hope y'all enjoy that. And as far as Kentucky, bless your hearts, I expect them to take up for the team and all, but truthfully, it's just a footnote in history. I mean, they lost, and that's just a fact. They won't be remembered for nothing but losing. But on the bright side, some dude in Iraq is sitting in a cave rocking the squeak 40-0 T-shirt. Thanks, Paul. Bruce.
Thank you. Appreciate the call. Philip is in Kentucky. How are you, Philip?
Hey, Paul. Good to talk to you, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Paul, I'm going to make a quick comment, and then I got something really interesting to say to you. For one, I'm just really surprised all these people are still calling in hating Kentucky after they lost. It just seems like they just want to just drill them into the ground. It just, I hope they get fun out of that. It really doesn't make any sense to me.
It's going to happen, you know it, and I think there's a little bit of silent rejoicing going on, Philip.
Yeah, apparently that is so. Paul, let me run a very amazing, bold prediction by you. This is what I think is going to happen in 10 years or less. I think these football schools are going to split off, form super power conferences, 4 of them, north, east, south, and west, that will focus only on football, while the college basketball teams form super conferences only concentrating on basketball. I really think that's going to happen. I really do, because of the money issues.
You know, it's hard to look down the road very, very far. I think 10 years is very difficult to predict. I don't think that will happen immediately. I think it would take some dramatic change. But basketball is a very important sport. I know it is in the SEC. It is in the Big Ten, obviously the ACC. The only thing you have that you could compare that to, in the Big East, you used to have some schools that played football, and then some in basketball. The ACC, Notre Dame, obviously, is a basketball contributor. It's not in football.
Yeah, Paul, think about, look to the east. You could have Penn State, Virginia Tech, Clemson, South Carolina, go south, Texas, Alabama, LSU, maybe Texas Tech. I'm just naming off.
Let me offer this, Philip. I mean, with this new autonomy with the Power Five, I mean, they pretty much have what they want from a football standpoint. I don't want to go 10 years down the road. It's very difficult to predict, but I will tell you in 5 years it won't look that different than it does now, with the exception that in football you'll have an 8-team playoff as opposed to a 4. Mickey is up next in Kentucky. Hey, Mickey, thank you for the phone call. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul, I hate to be repetitious, but I just wanted to reflect on what the gentleman just said. This hating Kentucky stuff, I think, has gone about far enough. Every other caller you got is just they blame this and blame that. Next, they'll be blaming Calipari if Iran gets the nuclear weapon. So I think so far he's done an outstanding job as a coach, but I'm kind of prejudiced. I live in Kentucky, and I just happen to know he's a whole lot better than what we had just before him. But I'll leave you alone, and I thank you for your program.
Well, you're right about one thing, and I think that's always the difference maker when you look ahead. And Kentucky had one of the worst coaches in its history in Billy Gillispie, and now they have someone who's trying to become the best. He hasn't gotten there yet. Let's move along. Michael is in Montgomery. Hey, Michael.
Hi, Paul. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
I just wanted to comment real quick on the Avery Johnson hire. I know it's been a popular topic. I think, Alabama did the best that they could do right now with the coaches available out there. They got a young, energetic coach who's proven on the next level, both as a player and as a coach, winning the championship at both levels. I guess I'm still scratching my head, though, from looking at it in a broader standpoint of you go from a guy like Gottfried who had the program at a certain height, was getting great recruits, national ranking, perennial or tournament appearances. You get rid of him, you go to a guy like Anthony Grant who, never ever seemed to find his system or his traction or the success that he found at VCU, especially on the defensive end. Just looking at what Alabama's been able to do the past couple of years. And I guess I'm just scratching my head because you go from being perennial contenders, you get Grant, you kind of.
Well, but Michael, let me jump in here quickly because of Michael, because of time. I think Alabama was in a very awkward position, but Godfrey didn't keep it going. It's easy to go back and say, yes, they were number one in the country for a week, and they lost to Utah. Yes, they made it to the Elite Eight in 2004, but it fell apart after that, and Grant couldn't get it back together. They swung big for Greg Marshall. They lost, and they had to recuperate. And I think Bill Battle decided, let's bring someone in here that is charismatic, that is colorful, because we like that versus just going to central casting, getting another mid-major coach, even though he may have had ties to the school. There's no guarantee this is going to be a success, but it has energized the Alabama fan base, which didn't look possible a week ago.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Rich is up next in Atlanta. Hey, Rich.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Hey, Paul, did you cover the deregulation stuff of the conference championship game criteria? It looks like the Big 12's aren't going to be able to have a championship game this year, and then also they're allowing the ACC to do it. And then there's talk of the ACC splitting into 3 5-team divisions. Have you heard any of this?
Not very much. What do you know about that?
Well, the ACC, again, it's all driven by the college football playoff, obviously. And they're, jockeying for position, and they want their 2 highest-ranked teams, like I said, to play. So, obviously, it would have been a Baylor TCU rematch last year. Now the ACC, because, they have Florida State and everybody else, they're hoping, obviously, it would have been Clemson that they would have played again last year. And what's interesting is, to make the math work, because they have the deal with Notre Dame, they would need to add another team, ideally. So like I said, they'd have 3 sets of 5. And I'm wondering if you're Swarbrick or whatever his name is, who would you go after to be your next team in the ACC? Would you Central Florida, Cincinnati? Who would you go after?
Yeah, and by the way, I have been looking at that as we're talking here, Rich. I mean, sometimes you float these things out there, but I'm puzzled by the ACC. Remember when we had the Big Ten ACC expansion a couple of years ago? Connecticut, I think, was hoping to get in. That didn't happen. I'm not sure how good of a decision that was for the ACC. I think there were some. It's a long way away, but I mean there were some natural rivalries you could develop.
Yeah, but it's about football. You know that.
I mean, of course.
UConn, it's about football, of course.
Yeah,
that's why they were orphans.
I'm still not sure I'm sold on Central Florida though.
They've had some great years with O'Leary, and that's
they have. But let me ask you though, and they have had great years. But what do they bring to the table in terms of punch? And having watched the SEC expansion, it was about one thing, and you know what that was. Does Central Florida bring very much to the table?
No, I hear you, but I said they're a sleeping giant.
Yeah.
You know, that's a program you could come into, you know, and really make a name for yourself, especially because of the recruiting base. Hey, Paul,
and do they fit? What's that? And then I'm not sure they fit the ACC attitude either.
All right. Well, I was reaching for them. I guess maybe it'd be Cincinnati. They're going to need somebody in order to make.
I think Cincinnati is I think Cincinnati is a little bit of a better fit, even though you could make the claim that Central Florida brings a big market into it. I don't think they do. I really don't know if there's anyone in Orlando. I mean, they draw good crowds, but it's certainly not a buzz when you consider what else is going on in that state. Cincinnati has some appeal.
Right. Nipper Field, that's their appeal. Hey, Paul, when are the meetings in Destin?
They start on the Tuesday after Memorial Day.
Okay, so early June or late May.
Yeah, it's the last week in May.
Paul, what do you think privately when the ADs and the head coaches are in a room together and they talk about how this year ended? What do you think their thought is? Was this an aberration or was this a trend?
Are you speaking in football?
Yes, that's the only thing I speak of.
Yeah. Rich, I don't think you'll hear much about it, and I think it's because it was aberrational. I just don't think that was truly indicative. The only thing you would hear maybe from someone, whether it's Dan Mullen or Hugh Freeze, you may hear that the league was so difficult. Is there a way to look at schedules? But that's already been looked at. It took forever to come up with the new SEC schedules after the transition in the wake of A&M and Missouri, and I think that they do about as good as they can do. What else can you possibly do? I mean, who could have predicted? Well, I guess all of us could have predicted that the SEC West would be 7 deep last year.
Right. But my concern about the conference, and I hope Darrell's right, I hope Greg McElroy's right, I hope whoever was talking about Jim Kelly's nephew was right, the quarterback position. You go around the conference, and other than Prescott, who can you really count on?
Yeah, let me say this, and I think everyone ought to be optimistic this time of the year. I'm not as optimistic. And it's not as if I'm finished thinking about it. We have plenty of time between now and July, but I don't buy that everyone is going to be that good, and I don't think you do either.
No, well, for that position and the way the game has evolved.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not anxious to name the teams I think that are going to fall flat on their face, but I can think of about one or two off the top of my head right now.
Right, Florida being Florida. Right.
I'm just laughing, Rich.
I appreciate you taking my call, as always.
Okay. Thank you, Rich.
I see it.
Good to hear from you. Really appreciate it very much. Let's check out K-Dub next in Alabama. Hey, K-Dub.
Hey,
Hey, sometimes you just be pissed off, Bees, and you just don't want to talk to nobody, baby. You just don't want to talk.
I wouldn't know that feeling.
Man, I know that feeling. I know you want to put. I know. Hey, I want to give you your props, though. I want to say this first. I didn't get a chance to watch the show live yesterday. I had to fill in on the day shift at the club. But I did tape it, you know, after watching the national championship game and me trying to watch the Finebaum show at 11 o'clock and someone saying something at 1:30 in the morning that made me want to call you. I can't even call you. I got to wait a couple of more hours.
Hey, let me ask you a question, K-Dub. I mean, I understand a club at night, but what's it like? What's it like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Sounds kind of creepy.
A bunch of suit and tie guys, a couple of hard-working guys, construction guys, just guys getting off work, you know.
Okay, so everybody's just chilling out after work.
Yeah, it's no real.
What time does the club open?
At 2 o'clock.
Okay, now I mean I'm thinking 8:30 in the morning is creepy, right? 2 o'clock. What time do you close?
Depends on what the night is. Like on a Monday, they'll close kind of early. But I actually work on the weekend, so I get off at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my goodness!
So I mean,
I can see. Let's take a picture of this guy in a minute. I can see Mark Kubiak, our producer here. I mean, I can see him walking in after lunch. Can't you?
Put him up on the screen.
He won't even show up. Now we know when John shows up. It's late.
Oh yeah, those night crawlers.
Yeah, but Cubes looks like a guy that he goes out for a Subway sandwich and go, I think I'll drop by the club. Come on, Cubes, get back in the shot here.
But look, I'm gonna tell you this, Beans, and you gonna laugh and you gonna think I'm lying to you. At those hours, that day shift hour, there'll be people in there looking just like Bees, and looking just like Paul in there.
That's when I normally go to the strip club. I have to be here about. I usually go 12:15, 12:30, and grab a salad, chef salad, and crackers, and read the paper.
Look, yeah, that reminds me. You talking about you gonna be at the golf tournament, and then you gonna serve ribs and stuff like that. Child, please, you ain't finna be serving no ribs. You gonna have a kale salad and a protein shake.
Hey, K-Dub, I didn't say I was gonna eat the ribs. I just said I was gonna serve the ribs. No, if I was a Masters champion and I served what I wanted to eat, it would be a really short meal.
Man, you'll have everybody in there, man.
How about this though, K-Dub? If I ever win the Masters, not only do I serve the ribs, you bring the entertainment.
Oh, I'll be over in the corner DJ, but let me tell you this. Do you think you really can afford that? Winning the Masters?
No. I'm done with the Masters. My time has passed.
Oh, okay. I think you always preach on when people need to just walk away. I think I don't think
you don't have to worry about me walking away from the golf course.
I done heard your Steve Spurrier story, so I don't think the Masters is. I think that's way out your league, there, brother.
Making contact with a golf shot is way out of my league right now.
You can't even get into Birmingham, Pelham, Country Club talking about some getting in the Masters.
I'm done. I'm one and done in golf. I'm done.
I know somebody who want to meet you on the 17th hole, though. I can tell you that probably. Or is it the 18th? It don't matter what hole.
K-Dub, 19th.
19th.
You know what the 19th hole is, don't you?
Tell me.
That's where you go drink after the 18th hole.
Oh, okay. Definitely, yeah. I can see a bunch of that going on. But I want to give you your props, though. You've been doing what you're supposed to been doing. I told you this story was going to be a whole lot better if Kentucky would have lost. I told you it was going to be a lot better story. But, I just wanted to see what you're going to give the Kentucky fans the Alabama treatment. You've been jabbing, and I give you a B so far. I'm still evaluating you right now, but right now you get a B. You've been handling business, slapping Calipari around a little bit like you do Nick when we lose. So I like it.
Not that. Hey, thanks, Dub.
Thank you for listening to the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast. Tune into the Paul Finebaum Show every day from 3 to 7 Eastern on the SEC Network or on the ESPN radio app.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
ESPN Radio. With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
Major League Baseball.
San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
The new college football playoff.
College football playoff national champions, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
You're home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
Two of baseball's best go head-to-head in interleague action when the Tigers head to St. Louis to face the Cardinals.
That one is gone.
The pregame at 7 Eastern, first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN and ESPN Radio.